Good morning and welcome to Farm Factor. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom. Today, Kyle Bauer reports from Sorghum U, where he catches up with K-State's Dr. Bill Golden, who talks about the economics of sorghum. Then Kyle and Lucas Haag discuss the fertility needed to grow sorghum. Next, enjoy our weekly Kansas Soybean update. And then Kyle is back at Sorghum U with Rick Kochenower with Sorghum Partners. We end today with a conversation about forage sorghum from Scott Staggenborg with Chromatin and Sorghum Partners. It's all coming up on Farm Factor. Stay tuned.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com. This segment is brought to you by Kansas Wheat. Learn more at rediscoverwheat.org.
Welcome to Farm Factor. Let's join Kyle as he visits with Dr. Bill Golden about the economics of sorghum as it relates to water usage.
I have the opportunity to visit with Dr. Bill Golden today with Kansas State University. We're going to be talking about sorghum and the economics of sorghum, but especially when it comes to water use. Tell me about your work, Dr. Golden.
At the present time, we're doing a quite intensive study up in northwest Kansas. A group of producers have established a local enhanced management area in that area, and they have reduced their water use by about 20%. They're working on an allotment of 55 inches over 10 years, and we have been involved in this program for the last 2 years. This is a 5-year program, and my main focus is studying the reactions of producers to reduced water use.
Is there a perceived outcome before you started as what you thought you would see? Are you seeing what you thought you'd see, or is there no perception?
Well, actually, we're not seeing what the majority of economists would think we would see. It's a perception that if you use less water, then you have to lose yield, and that will result in reduced cash flows and incomes. What we're actually seeing in the area is that producers are shifting their crops. They have reduced their planted acres of corn. They have increased their planted acres of grain sorghum. Their soybean acres have stayed about constant. When we review the financial information, we're actually seeing that we're not losing revenue. We're comparing producers both inside the Lima area and outside the Lima area. Obviously, the producers outside the Lima area are using less water, but what we're finding is that that does not equate to less income. So after 2 years of the study, we're questioning, does reduced water use actually reduce farm profits?
With the high variability of rainfall throughout the western portion of Kansas, or in farming in general, is 5 years long enough to get a good database?
It probably isn't, but at the same time, that's all we have. The producers that entered into the Lima wanted to try it for 5 years and then make the decision whether to continue on with this program. Now, the implication that I'm getting from the producers involved with the Lima is that they're going to continue this. And if they continue it, then we will continue monitoring that area, because there's a lot of interest in other areas on how we reduce water use and at the same time maintain profitability.
That's Dr. Bill Golden. He's with Kansas State University. This is Kyle Bauer reporting from Sorghum U.
Coming up next here on Farm Factor, Kyle will be back with Lucas Haag from Kansas State University.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. A high-energy, drought-tolerant crop, sorghum only requires 6 inches of water to produce the first bushel. And with its wide uses and easy adaptation, sorghum proves to be a truly indispensable crop. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Buying a car shouldn't be this hard. And at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego, it isn't. It's actually awesome. Whether you want a new or used car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. Even if you want to custom order a new car or truck, Toby's team can make the deal. See Toby's team at Brown Chevrolet Buick in Wamego. We're awesome.
Ag Promo Source is a unique group of marketing specialists with one mission: help your ag business grow. Each affiliate has their own area of expertise, and they work together to bring you advice, products, and services. To get started, visit agpromosource.com. Ag Promo Source. Together we grow.
Valley Vet Supply is devoted to providing information and professional quality products at reasonable prices.
Valley Vet Supply.
Watch Ag AM in Kansas online at agaminkansas.com. This segment is brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff. Progress powered by Kansas farmers.
We're back. Let's join Kyle and Lucas Haag as they discuss misconceptions related to the fertility needed to grow sorghum.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I'm visiting with Lucas Haag. We're talking sorghum today. Lucas is talking sorghum fertility, or the fertility we need for sorghum. Lucas, what is the biggest misconception that people have about fertility in sorghum?
Well, Kyle, as we visit with producers across the state, crop consultants, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is that sorghum requires less fertility than, say, corn to reach its maximum attainable yields. And so that's certainly something that we'll talk about today, specifically when it comes to nitrogen, that for a given how many bushel yield goal you have, it takes the same pounds of nitrogen to get to that yield goal in sorghum as it does corn.
But the yield goals tend to be higher on corn than sorghum, but maybe that's just because that's what we fertilize for.
Well, and there's a lot of other factors there. Where we're using it in the rotation, in different parts of the state, we see different responses to how that corn sorghum comparison works out. And so, but I think the key thing is certainly we want to be pushing our yield goals, and that we're fertilizing that where we can hit them when we're in those above average years, when we get the precipitation and the heat and everything works out right, that we can really capitalize on those good years.
Now, you talk about rotation. A lot of times sorghum is part of a rotation program, especially on dry land. How does that come into play?
Well, it really comes into play, I think, and we'll visit a bit today, specifically managing nutrients like phosphorus, where we need to take not just a single-year view, but more of a long-term view. How does it relate to our soil test values? And so one of the things we'll talk about, I really encourage producers to work through some back-of-the-envelope exercises where we just think about how much phosphorus are we taking off in crop removal, how much are we putting back onto the field, and how is that affecting our soil test values. And good management of that obviously will help the sorghum crop, but all the crops that are in that rotation.
Now, there's parts of Kansas that sorghum doesn't grow well because of micronutrients. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yes, so certainly in western Kansas we have issues with iron chlorosis due to our calcareous soils, and so we'll talk a little bit about research that's going on at Hayes and Garden City and Tribune, looking at some chelated iron products in furrow that have helped us combat some of those issues. And really we'll open the opportunities for sorghum on some acres where it's traditionally struggled.
As sorghum as a continuous crop, does that change the fertility a great deal?
I think, again, it comes back to recognizing, what we're pulling off in that sorghum crop, a little over 0.4 of a pound of phos for every bushel of sorghum yield, so making sure we're getting that replacement back on. And then, one of the best attributes sorghum has going for it is the amount of residue it creates and how durable that residue is through time. Now, part of that is that residue has the opportunity to tie some nitrogen up. So it's important, especially if we're in the early years of transitioning to no-till, we've got more residue out there. Oftentimes it requires more nitrogen in those early years to make that system work, and if we're growing continuous sorghum, that would further drive home the importance of that.
We're visiting with Lucas Haag. Lucas is with Kansas State University. This is Kyle Bauer reporting. Back to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Kyle. Next up is this week's Kansas Soybean Update. Stay with us.
Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture, represents grassroots agriculture. The state's largest and most powerful farm organization stands up for its members through leadership development, agriculture education, legal defense, environmental advocacy, farm safety, and risk management. Members also enjoy money-saving benefits. To join our organization today or to learn more, go to www.kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back to Farm Factor and the Kansas Soybean Update.
This is the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Jared Hagert, who is a North Dakota soybean producer and serves as chairman of the United Soybean Board, is joining us. Jared, USB has a long-range strategic plan, but I know it's got some specific things that it wants to do, and there's a lot of it that goes evolving, I guess, from beyond the bushel through innovation and really looking at the focus as far as the needs of the customer as well.
The United Soybean Board's mission really hasn't changed. It's maximizing profit opportunities for U.S. soybean farmers. What has changed a little bit is a vision, and that is U.S. soy drives innovation beyond the bushel. That really is speaking to the bushels. You know, we're not saying that we are not focusing on yield. That statement says we think yield is table stakes. It's got to be there in whatever offerings brought forward. But what we are saying is we need to look at innovation beyond that bushel. And the way we're doing that is we focused on three areas: meal, oil, and sustainability. And we're looking at those areas through the prism of the value chain of supply, marketplace, and demand. So we're taking a look at what we can do as far as innovation in meal and oil and in the product offerings that supply the demands of our end users.
Are there a lot more demands that these end users now have, say, versus 5-10 years ago?
As you can see in the news, the customers are becoming more and more sophisticated in their asks, not only in the U.S. but abroad. The EU is rather a large presence on sustainability. It's coming more and more into the markets around the world too. The other thing about innovation beyond the bushel is throughout that value chain is ensuring that there's clear market signals both to the producers and end users of what's needed and what is valued. And it's about capturing that value and bringing it back to the U.S. soybean farmer.
And with the demand out there, there's a lot of value that still is yet to be had, so to speak.
There's a lot of opportunities out there in different areas. We've got to continue to do some market research and some product research to see where some of these things have a best fit. And while continuing some of the programs that we've invested in, such as high oleic soybeans, take action on weeds. Those are important programs that are being run right now.
That is Jared Hagert, a North Dakota soybean farmer and chair of the United Soybean Board. He joins us on the Kansas Soybean Update. It's brought to you by the Kansas Soybean Commission. The Soybean Checkoff, progress powered by Kansas farmers. Learn more at kansassoybeans.org. For Kansas Soybeans, I'm Greg Akagi.
Hope you enjoyed this week's Kansas Soybean Update. After the break, Kyle and Rick Kochenower visit about sugarcane aphids.
Biodiesel made from sustainable resources is diversifying our fuel supply. This year, biodiesel will displace over 1 billion gallons of fossil fuel nationwide. It's making our economy stronger and our communities healthier. It's working here and across America. Get biodiesel going in your community. Visit americasadvancedbiofuel.com.
This segment brought to you by Heinen Brothers Ag, farmers helping farmers by offering quality aerial and ground application, fertilizer, ag chemicals, and anhydrous ammonia. Call today to protect your crop yield.
Thanks for staying with us. Let's join Kyle and Rick in their discussion about sugarcane aphids.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I have the opportunity to visit with Rick Kochenower. He is with Sorghum Partners. We're going to talk about sugarcane aphids, and it's like we don't raise sugarcane in Kansas and Oklahoma, and why would we be concerned about the sugarcane aphid? Well, the reality is it's become a huge issue in sorghum.
Yes, it started in 2013 in South Texas. For some reason, nobody really knows. They came off sugarcane. It had to have been some type of biotype change to where they come off of sugarcane and went on to sorghum. They've been in the U.S. since the 70s. So we had some kind of a change. Well, they actually liked sorghum. They kind of exploded. The natural predators just didn't have a chance to build up. That's part of our issues. The problems we had in north central Oklahoma and south central Kansas last year was the simple fact that we kind of had what I tell guys is the perfect storm. We were late planting by, up to a month because of all the rain we had in April and May. So when the sugarcane aphids got here on the wind from South Texas where they overwinter, sorghum was not in the same stage it was when we had them the first time in 2014. We had some other complications. Guys weren't used to having them, so they probably let them get too high a count before they actually started to spray the first time. Or we had that little cool snap, they sprayed then. We know the efficacy of the insecticides is not as good when those temperatures get lower. I've had some conversations with the entomologist that's been working with these for 3 years. We're not exactly sure what that temperature is. We just know when temperatures get lower, the efficacy is not as good.
There was, besides the chemicals not particularly working and us not being used to managing them, there was some thought that we could possibly get by with not treating because it was just a harvest issue, but it turned it out to be more than just a harvest issue.
Yes, they are actually looking for some nutrient in the plant. There's some hybrids they prefer over others, and they do. What happens is they suck the juice out of the plant. It goes through their body, it creates a honeydew, and basically they induce drought stress on these sorghum plants, whether it be grain sorghum or forage sorghum, either one, because they hit both. And hybrids that are tolerant can handle that, or the insects doesn't get on it quite as heavy as they do on the ones that are more susceptible. So they actually do put it into some type of a really severe drought stress. That's the reason a hybrid that is susceptible will generally not head out, because it's basically just like being in a drought stress, even though with all the rain we had last year.
Let's talk about the honeydew issue, what it's like to harvest with sugarcane aphid infestation.
It causes problem because for a couple of things. That honeydew will plug up the sieves on the combine. Also, the grain will stick to that leaf and it'll go over, out of the rear end of the combine, because the leaf just actually carries the grain because the grain is sticking to it. There's been reports of 40 to 60% yield loss just because of the honeydew.
And then does it help if it freezes then? Does that make the harvesting go better?
Yeah, if you get a freeze on it, that will kill the plant. And then actually if you can get a rain on it, because rain will wash that honeydew off, that generally will help. But, then you're getting late in the year and you get into a year like this year where we still got guys that got sorghum in the field just because they can't get the ground dry enough or they can't get it frozen enough to hold up the combine.
We're visiting about sugarcane aphids today. This is Kyle Bauer reporting. Back to you, Jamie.
Don't go away. After the break, Kyle and Scott Staggenborg with Chromatin and Sorghum Partners talk about forage sorghum.
Grain sorghum is one of the most important cereal crops worldwide, and Kansas leads the nation in its production. Over the years, sorghum has been either exported, used in animal feed domestically, or for other industrial uses. Recently, its use in the ethanol market has seen tremendous growth, with 30% of domestic sorghum typically going to ethanol production. Kansas Grain Sorghum is committed to sorghum research, market development, and education. Learn more at ksgrainsorghum.org.
Hello, I'm Dr. Frank Lyons from Kansas Regenerative Medicine Center here in Manhattan, Kansas. Daryl was one of our patients that we did about 7 months ago.
I dug trees by hand for years and years and years. In the process, I wore out my rotating cuff. But when I learned about this process, I thought if there's a way to get rid of this pain, then I want to do it. So we did it, and it worked. And I'm not going to go out and dig trees with a shovel anymore, but I can do the things that I want to do now.
Well, it's been very gratifying to help people with their painful joints and other entities. And it's been especially gratifying to be able to help people who I know and have worked with and known for many years.
Soil is the life of a farm, and for 25 years, SureCrop Liquid Crop Nutrition has helped growers produce abundant quality crops while preserving and improving the soils they steward. SureCrop offers complete soil and plant analysis with cropping recommendations, delivery direct to your on-farm storage, and quality crop nutrition custom blended for your field. Choose SureCrop for the assurance of excellence for your soil. Call today or visit their website for more information.
Next time you see a beautiful field of corn, reach out and thank the farmers who work tirelessly to raise corn for livestock feed, renewable fuels, and exports to feed a growing world population. The farmers on the Kansas Corn Commission work for Kansas Corn with grower-funded checkoff dollars that support foreign and domestic market development, research, promotion, and education to expand opportunities for Kansas farmers. To learn more, visit kscorn.com.
Segment brought to you by Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. To join today or for more information, go to kfb.org or find us on Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. Now let's go to Kyle and Scott.
Hi, this is Kyle Bauer. I have the opportunity to visit with Scott Staggenborg. He is with Chromatin and Sorghum Partners. And he today is talking mainly about forage sorghums and how we can best utilize those on the farms. As we've talked about brown midrib, and then we have sorghums that have grain and some that don't have grain. What would you recommend for the people that are planting forage sorghum for livestock feed?
Well, Kyle, as we mentioned in the presentation, it has a lot to do with the end use. For someone that has a dairy, obviously the highest quality forage is typically what they're after, and so that typically our recommendation for that would be probably a brown midrib brachytic dwarf hybrid. Those hybrids produce quite a bit of grain, so you have that starch component in there that improves the quality of the forage, and you also have the added benefit of the brown midrib. That trait brings to bear the fact that it's lower in lignin and it's more digestible. If it's someone who has a lower, I shouldn't use the word lower quality, but that is really what it is, need, and this is typically someone maybe with dry heifers or dry cows or replacement heifers in a dairy program, or maybe a beef cow or stalker type situation, then maybe more of your traditional type forages, silage types would work. These can either be the ones that are photoperiod sensitive that don't produce any grain, or some of the traditional silage types that do.
As out here on the plains, of course, what we see a lot of times on forage sorghums is drought tolerance. What can we do on that selection for drought tolerance?
Well, sorghums natively has very good drought tolerance, and so that again is going to vary a little bit with type. We know that the photoperiod sensitive hybrids handle drought periods of drought very well because again they're not producing grain, so there's really no critical stage to worry about. So they're very resilient. You hit a period where maybe it doesn't rain for 4 or 5 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it might be. They largely will just pause their growth, if you will, and then when it starts to rain, they'll start to grow again. The traditional forage sorghums that we have handle drought fairly well. It's just if you run into some drought conditions, obviously the yields might be lower and the grain yields might be lower. So again, that's something to keep in mind. The brachytic dwarfs, early season drought can cause some challenges with those because again, we've already dwarfed them. They're quite a bit shorter. They're in that 6 to 7 feet range. If they get some stress early, they might be even shorter. And so they're picking the correct product with good drought tolerance is important, and they do exist. We do have a brachytic dwarf hybrid that handles drought fairly well. So again, it's back to hybrid selection is so important under those conditions.
As I listened to your presentation today, it seemed to me the best thing they might do would be to plant a sterile variety or a variety that does not head and then add the grain back for my needs.
Right, and that is a strategy that we've had nutritionists use because, again, we have the challenge of harvesting forage sorghum at the proper stage of the grain at the proper stage, soft dough, so that starch is available. We have had nutritionists say, I'm just going to take that variable out of the equation, grow the photoperiod sensitive material that does not produce any grain, and then bring the grain in from an external source somewhere else, and then make the feed up that way.
We're visiting with Scott Staggenborg today. He is with Sorghum Partners. This is Kyle Bauer reporting. Back to you, Jamie.
Thanks for joining us. I'm your host, Jamie Bloom, and I hope you enjoyed today's show. See you next week on Farm Factor. We're here every Tuesday on Ag AM in Kansas.
Closed captioning brought to you by Ag Promo Source. Together we grow. Learn more at agpromosource.com.